All right, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Hey, welcome to episode 53 of Front Seat Gamer. I'm Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Hi, Saveun. I'm here with Saveun.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm also here with Blake.
Hey, Nick.
No guests this week, but I'm back, so
Man,
no guests
it's
needed.
tough without you, man. It's tough.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, you're
Hosting's
mentioning...
tough. Hosting is tough.
Blake will not host ever
I'll
again.
never host ever again. So listeners can. That's good news for listeners there.
I didn't listen to it, but
Good
know what?
for you.
if email us what you thought about the last episode and whether or not we should sacrifice Blake in an altar for a new host. You can email us at frontseatquestions@gmail.com or killblake@gmail.com.
Whoa.
New email address.
Jesus. That's, man.
How you guys doing?
Good, man. Dude, how was the trip?
It was fun. It was busy.
Being on the
I got
other side?
sick.
No.
Yeah. I got sick while I was over there.
Well, was it what kind of sick? Was
Like
not
just like a cold or something
Oh,
like that.
okay.
Like flu or something. I probably spread it to a bunch of game journalists.
nice?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Put them in their place.
Yeah. Screw those guys with their coverage of our game. Lovely people. What else? Oh yeah, we announced the thing. We announced the Fall of Oriath.
Mm-hmm.
So in case you missed it, and I don't know how you would have missed it, but also have been a fan of this podcast, we've announced our upcoming big expansion, Fall of Oriath. When I say big, I really mean big. It's gigantic. It's 6 acts.
Mm-hmm.
I went overseas to show it off to the journalists. Those who were familiar with the game were extremely impressed.
That's cool.
Those who were not so familiar with the game were just they understood it.
Yeah.
That's about as much as you can hope for, I think.
Were they like? So this is like Diablo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that like how much your frame of reference changes how you perceive these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with Path of Exile and its ilk, and someone says, and we're adding another 6 acts, it's like, what?
Yeah.
And if you're not, it's just like, oh, so it's an expansion.
If you don't know what an act, if you don't have a general idea of how long an act is in most of these kind of games,
Right.
It's like, okay,
Well, even if you do have an idea of how long an act is, you may not. Like, you understand that it's portions of content, and games add portions of content all the time. And 6 on top of 4 sounds like a lot, but really you haven't played it, so you don't really understand like what that means for the game.
And well, I guess especially because like even games like Diablo, they generally just release 1 act at a time. Like here's an expansion of 1 act.
Yeah. Even like Titan Quest did that. They added 1 extra act at the end.
And that's what we were doing for
Yep.
the longest time.
Yeah. We added Act 3 and then Act 4.
Yep.
And then we were working on Act 5, and then we decided to work on Act 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So why not? Why not?
Yeah. No reason
well.
to not do it, right? It's not like it's going to take...
You just press
Tons
the
and
make
tons
act
of effort.
button and there you go.
Yeah, press the Act button
Yeah.
5 more times.
Yeah.
And done. So how are you guys going?
Good. I kind of want to hear more about what happened in America. Anything?
All right.
Anything else? Like,
Well, okay, the major points for me was I got to eat a clam chowder bread bowl at Boudin Bakery in San Francisco, which is something I missed. It's picture delicious sourdough, big lump of sourdough bread, and they hollow it out, and they fill it with clam chowder, and they give you the bread that they hollowed out, and you get to dip it in the clam
Ooh.
chowder and eat it, and then you eat the bread bowl as well.
Oh, wow.
You eat the bowl.
So they must toast it, right?
No.
No?
Oh, it's just soggy?
wait, just soggy.
No, sourdough is not soggy. It's like quite structurally sound.
No, sorry, with the chowder inside. Do you get seepage?
No, the sourdough has quite a nice crusty crust to it, and on top of that, like the bread itself is the dough itself is kind of thick.
Okay.
Man.
So it's got a bit of a chew to it. You know that nice chewy sourdough bread. You crunch into this outside, and the inside's got some like sponginess to it. Oh, it's so good. and just it was that. And it's also their clam chowder is really really good. So
Yeah, if you could see Nick right now describing it.
oh man, I want so much of it.
Yeah.
I just had lunch and I just want so much bread bowl right now.
Have you
Email us a bread bowl, frontseatbreadbowl@gmail.com.
do you know of any other place that does a bread bowl like in Auckland here in New Zealand
I think
that I can go to?
there are places you can get bread bowls here, but like I've never had one as good as the ones I had in San Francisco.
Right. Home of the bread bowl.
Yeah,
San Francisco.
yeah. But not just that, but home of the clam chowder bread bowl
Right.
from Boudin. Like if you know anybody who's ever been to San Francisco for any long period of time, they'll probably be familiar with that as like a thing that you do when you're in San Francisco.
Man.
So good.
How did
what
it feel
else?
to be back in your old stomping ground?
It was kind of strange. We weren't staying in like the nicest. I mean, San Francisco is an interesting city because like you can be in the nicest neighborhood in the city and you're still like a block or two away from the worst neighborhood in the city.
Oh wow.
You know, it's like it's the super high income areas are very very tightly packed next to the super low income areas.
So it's like the classic like wrong side of the tracks. Like this side of the tracks is nice, but just over there it's like terrible.
Yeah, but and then like a bit further it's nice again, and a bit further again it's terrible again.
Oh,
you know,
weird.
it's really like so intermingled.
Yeah.
It's such a dense city, and that and on top of that, the fact that it's like one of the highest income areas in the world, but also has one of the highest like homeless populations.
Oh really?
So it's like you really get both sides in such close proximity. And also, if you're homeless, living in a city with a high income is a fairly okay way to. I mean, you know, obviously it sucks to be homeless, but people have a little more money to spare potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And San Francisco, being a very liberal city, also has pretty good social services, like lots of homeless outreach programs and stuff. So it's just you get a very strange mix of the ultra wealthy and the ultra poor.
It's warm there, right?
No,
Isn't it?
it's
It doesn't snow.
no, it doesn't snow. But we were over there in winter,
Yeah.
and it used to be kind of droughty over there. But when it's not droughty, there's like right around the time that we went over there, there's like usually a few weeks of rain, and so it was raining most of the time we were there.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Did you take, because you went with
Chris and Jonathan.
Yeah. Did you show them around anywhere? Did you say you have to go to this place? You have to go to the bread bowl place. You got to have a bread bowl.
Not really. I mean, they've been there quite a lot as well. Like, they didn't live there, but they go there, you know, a couple times a year. And
Right.
And they've been doing that for a few years. And they go to GDC and they do all that stuff. So they're familiar to some extent with big parts of the city. It was weird for me because I hadn't been. They've been there kind of regularly for the like 5-6 years or whatever it is. I hadn't been there in 5 years at all, so I was just noticing some of the differences.
Right.
It's gotten even more starkly contrasted than it used to be. Like when I was living there, there was like this intermingling of the wealthy and the extremely poor, but it's gotten worse. I saw it felt like there were more homeless people and people living on the poverty line, and more ultra rich, like beautiful Tesla driving car type people, like software engineers, like that. So it's just gotten more polarized. I also didn't get to go to the restaurant I wanted to go because it was kind of on the other side of the city. I wanted to go to this place called HRD.
Okay.
If you live in San Francisco, check out HRD. I think it's like on 3rd. It's at least when I lived there, it was like a hybrid Korean, Chinese, American, Mexican diner.
Whoa,
food
man.
place. And they do these like gigantic, or at least when I was there, they did these huge kimchi burritos. So like picture a burrito filled with kimchi fried rice and spicy pork and sour cream and kiwi salsa.
Holy crap.
The biggest burrito I've ever seen for like $6.
Wow,
It's,
okay.
it's ridiculous. They were on a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah.
When I lived there, I was a regular, and they learned my name and they learned my orders.
Oh man, what
And
was your
then-
order? What was your order?
It was either the burrito or like the bibimbap or the Mongolian cheesesteak.
Jesus Christ!
yeah.
This place.
Yeah, so it's so good. And I would go there like multiple times a week for months and months. And then they went on the show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, which is Guy Fieri,
Oh yeah.
bleach-haired. He goes around to these places and he showcases like a couple of the dishes and talks about how good it is or whatever. And they invited me to come over to be one of the people he interviews.
Oh,
and
man.
I don't remember why, but I just couldn't go in that day, or I chose not to, or whatever it was. And I didn't go. And then like I asked how it went. Like, yeah, it went good. And then we didn't know when they were going to air it until we went in like on a Monday, and the line to the place was like around the corner.
Yeah.
And we had to wait for like 45 minutes. And we're like, okay, they were on the weekend. and ever since then, it's been crazy there.
Wow.
Yeah, so they got famous sort of, and
That's cool. That sounds like a hell of a place.
Yeah, it was awesome. I love HRD. And I got some good Mexican. That was the other thing I was dying for, was just some good Mexican food. You can't get good Mexican.
You don't like
here.
Mexican here?
No, I don't.
What's your problem with the Mexican food here?
It's not. It's like
It's not real Mexican.
it's like Taco Bell Mexican is about. It's like the best Mexican you can get here is like bad Chipotle Mexican in the U.S.
We had a place here that I really like called California Burrito.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, that was my favorite place for ages, but they ended up shutting down because there was like a massive dispute between the two owners.
Oh man, was it?
They did. Oh man, they did this one that was like a KG burrito. That was like a challenge. Like if you could eat it, you got I guess a free one or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
And you wouldn't want to eat it because you just ate a kg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you win a free KG burrito. And you're like, oh.
Yay! No. If have you ever tried Mexican in the U.S.?
Never been to the US.
Just gonna let that.
I've
Just gonna let that hang there for a second.
Yeah. I've barely
should,
left New Zealand.
I reckon you should go to the U.S. Go to either like San Francisco or L.A. I mean, I don't love L.A. In fact, I kind of hate L.A., but they do have good Mexican there. San Diego has good Mexican as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Once you've had like Mexican made by people who were raised in Mexico, and you're like, oh wow, okay.
That's the thing. Like the Mexican place, the Mexican
really
places
different and
here,
really good.
Mexican places here are all like university students, just from like Hamilton.
Yeah,
or
they
something.
looked up a recipe online
Yeah.
on how to make a Tex-Mex burrito. And
Yeah.
They started a restaurant. That's basically what it was.
Nobody grew up with the recipes or
No.
anything like that.
You don't get like proper refried beans. You don't get red sauce. You don't get all of like mole, for example, is just something you never see here.
What is that?
Mole is like a sauce based on chocolate, basically. They make chocolate, but they make savory chocolate, and then they use that as like the sauce or the seasoning. And so it's just got a very
Is
interesting.
that for like a dessert burrito?
No, it's savory. It's like savory chocolate. It's hard to explain. They basically use cocoa to make a savory sauce,
Okay,
and
it's very confusing.
yeah, but it's really good. It's just got a very, very rich flavor. Oh man, I just had lunch.
You just want to talk about the food you ate there.
Can we call
for like
this Frenzy
an hour.
Eater?
Frenzy eater.
Yeah. So that was my those were the exciting things for me. Obviously, showing off the content was fun, but man,
But the food.
I just missed Mexican food so bad.
Right. Oh,
And I caught up with my friend Anthony. That was fun. He runs. He's on a different podcast, slightly more popular than ours. You may have heard of it. It's called Rebel FM.
Yeah, he actually called you out by
Did he?
name. Yeah. He was
When?
like, I'm gonna meet up with. They actually talked about Path of Exile for a little bit.
Oh, neat.
This was after the whole Xbox thing,
Yeah.
and yeah, there was some interesting conversation there.
It's interesting. He's probably one of my best friends, and he works for a competitor of ours. And so we were talking about like just
Sabotage.
talking about the sort of work we do, because we're both game designers, and we don't really talk about like stuff we're working on specifically. We don't talk about specifics because NDAs and stuff. We just can't, and we shouldn't. But it's interesting when he's on like that podcast, for example, he feels a bit weird about talking about our game
Okay.
because he works for a competitor, and he doesn't use that platform to he doesn't often get people from his work on to talk about
And
the game he works on.
what is the game he works on?
Marvel Heroes. So he has to avoid that sort of conflict of interest there. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, do you know about Marvel?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Isn't that David Breverick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he left.
Not anymore.
Not any, oh yeah.
But yeah, cool. I didn't know he talked about us. That's neat.
Yeah, it was cool.
Did he should have been like, and by the way, listen to Frenzy Gamer. I don't think he's ever. I don't think he even knows this exists. Anyway.
Also a competitor on being on the podcast. Yeah.
Oh man. I keep telling him he should visit New Zealand because I think he'd really like it here.
Anthony?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Just load up on Mexican food before.
Yes.
'Cause you won't get
Or
any
just
good
put some in a styrofoam container and bring it over.
Or in your pocket.
Yeah.
Get some guac in your pocket.
Pocket guac.
Yeah.
So I caught up with him and visited my dad as well because he lives in LA.
That's
That
cool.
was basically it. And we talked about and we just promoted the game and the new content and stuff. What'd you guys do?
That's cool. We actually did some press stuff too.
Oh yeah.
We went out to an Xbox thing.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. We're
Because we're big time Xbox
yeah, we're
guys
big
now.
time.
Yeah.
No, we were invited. Halo Wars 2 is coming out. Have you
Oh
heard of
yeah,
this
yeah,
game?
yeah. I think that Chris and Jonathan mentioned that there was something about that.
It was pretty
Yeah.
pretty funny.
But
fun?
yeah, we actually the thing is there was a general invite to all of Grinding Gear games.
Yeah.
But there was also a specific invite for Path of Exile. not Path of Exile, sorry.
Backseat Gamer.
Backseat Gamer.
Wait,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, yeah. No, we got emailed by Stephen Knightley, the guy that was organizing it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, asking us to come for the podcast. And I was
Never
like,
told
yeah.
me.
Well, where were you? Where you've been?
When was this?
This was when was this?
It was Monday.
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the country.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't.
I stayed home because I was sick.
Right.
but,
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's pretty
No
good,
worries. I'm not offended or anything, Blake. You son of a bitch.
That's all right. This is why I don't invite you.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was telling Blake yesterday.
Yeah, dude, I was I liked it, but I'm really surprised that you liked it so much.
Yep. Yeah, it was really good. I hadn't played a game like that. I never played the first one.
So do we want to talk about what it actually is? Like,
Halo Wars?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a strategy game with a controller?
It's a console RTS, right?
yeah.
I mean, Halo Wars 1 was sort of middlingly received, as from what I remember. People liked it. They weren't blown away by it.
I think the best thing I heard about it was that it did the controls like pretty well for like that's a tricky thing to try and
Yes.
get a RTS on with a controller, and they did a pretty good job apparently.
I never got to play it. I did play. There was a tactics game called World in Conflict.
Oh yeah, I remember that
Sound
game.
familiar?
Yeah, yeah.
It was made by Massively.
Yep.
Massive Leap.
Massively.
Oh, okay.
Massive, or maybe it was Massive Entertainment. Maybe it was Massive. One of those. Anyway, they made it for PC, and it came out in I want to say like 2008, maybe.
Yeah, I think I've got it and played it for like 5 minutes.
How is it?
Don't remember.
Right. So, I went to check it out on like my very first ever press trip.
Yeah.
They were doing a console port
Oh, okay.
that never came out.
Oh.
But I played it, and I wrote an article. Like I wrote a preview for it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was, and it was kind of. It felt a bit button mashy though, which was weird.
Really
Like,
weird.
it was. So I remember being in the demo. There was all these journalists around. We're all sat at our own separate TVs, and we're playing like a level in the campaign or whatever. And this was my first ever trip, and trying to get to Sweden from Australia was like a nightmare because there was like a storm over Heathrow Airport, which was the one connecting flight I basically needed.
Right.
And our flight got redirected and then delayed, and I ended up arriving 14 hours after I was meant to.
Wow.
I hadn't really slept at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been basically in transit for like 40-something hours, and I hadn't slept very much. I think I maybe got an hour or two of sleep. And I got in like 7 a.m. of the morning that these demos were happening. And so I just was like completely out of it, and I did this whole demo thing, and I was just playing the game, and I like blew through the content really quickly, and I didn't realize it because I was just like sort of button mashing, and I beat the content before anybody else did.
Oh wow!
And I didn't really know what I was doing.
Wow, are you just bragging?
No.
Is this just a
no,
brag?
This was more a sign that the game was flawed because like all I had to there was a very simple strategy of just place units whenever you could.
Yep.
And you didn't really have to think about it.
And what was the unit selection like? Was it just? I mean,
know what?
like
I don't even
when you
remember.
place a unit, were you selecting which one? Because Halo Wars 2, I played a very similar mode to that.
Yeah, I think it was like they had cooldowns or something like that,
Okay.
or they had costs associated with them. I don't fully remember, but you just got like a trickle of money from like holding things. I don't.
Yeah.
It's.
Dude, that sounds a lot like this Halo Wars
And
match.
I
that
wonder if
played,
it was. I think it came out around. I think maybe working on it around a similar time that Halo Wars came out, which is maybe why they canceled it. Because maybe Halo Wars just did it before them and maybe did it better.
And I mean, Halo Wars was designed for console rather than porting it to console.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that that was the very first example of a game I think I played that never came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You
And
played
it was,
it half asleep and
yeah.
and
I
beat
mean, it was
it.
fine.
Well done.
I just didn't. It didn't. There was
Yeah.
no strategy.
Yeah.
There was no strategy to it.
Well,
for me.
that's what I remember from the 5 minutes I played of that game was because I on the back cover of it, it looked like a Command and Conquer's Generals type game, and I was like, this is gonna be cool because it was like Generals was when that came out like 2000, 2001 or something like that, and this was years later. It's like sweet ass looking graphics, like it's gonna be great. And then it was really like I don't remember building a base. You just like put some units down and selected stuff, and you just held points, and I was like, it's not really what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, halfway through my gameplay,
Yep.
I found out that you could build stuff.
Yeah, so you you had a different match type than I did. Like,
okay.
Yeah, so my match type was just like what Nick was describing, where you just had a trickle of income from points on the map that you held, and then you just placed units. You had a selection of units that came up like cards, and you could just pick which ones you wanted, and they did kind of matter because like you'd see what the enemy was hitting you with, and you're like, I'm going to put down this like tank to counter this or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you had a different game where you actually built like a base or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was telling Blake that it had been a while since I'd played anything. The last strategy game I'd played was StarCraft 2.
Mm.
And
What'd you think of StarCraft 2?
Good, man. I just never had time for it.
Right.
So I haven't finished it. But I liked how it was just casual. Like, I really enjoyed just assigning things. The gameplay felt really good.
It was on easy.
Yeah, but it felt great. And I went away that night thinking, man, I want to pick up this game.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised.
Which doesn't really happen to me.
Yeah.
Is this the game you were talking about during lunch, Blake? You said that Saveun had started playing a game.
Yep. This is the
that
game.
he liked that you didn't think he would like that had vehicles in it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't GTA.
It wasn't GTA. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the most opposite GTA that you could probably get.
No, I don't think that's true. I think if it was fantasy setting.
Oh yeah,
And
but I mean
turn-based.
it's sci-fi. That's basically fantasy.
You're saying Hearthstone is the exact opposite from...
Well, would you play Hearthstone? See?
Yep.
There you go.
Too many stats.
There you go.
But yeah, it was great, and I watched you play that, and there was a crazy moment at the end.
Oh yeah, the freaking crab thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, they just took out all my units. But I'd won because I had the captured points for the longest. But I was getting wrecked, man.
Yeah, that does sound a little bit similar to the game I played a long time ago. I should play some Halo Wars. I find those games interesting because, like, on a controller, you don't have the capability of like micromanaging multiple locations at once.
Well, I will say in Halo 2, the D-pad is used to quickly navigate around the map, which is pretty cool. Like locations of interest, largest groups of people, your main base, that kind of thing.
I think I played a game by Sega a long time ago called. No, you know what? I don't know what it was called. It was made in Australia. It was another console sort of RTS/tactics game. and they had a similar thing. It was sort of over the shoulder perspective though, which is sort of strange for a strategy game. But yeah, you could hop around the map by. I think they did it by using like the secondary stick to flick between locations on the map.
That's weird. Over the shoulder. So were you inhabiting units on the map then?
More or less, yeah, sort of. You could see squads,
right?
But you were pretty close to the squads.
Wow.
I think you could zoom in and out sort of at will.
Wow, weird.
It ended up not being very good,
right?
Because like there are just issues with tactics and strategy games on console that are very, very difficult to overcome. One of them is basically like map awareness is such a huge problem.
And the maps are quite small.
Yes.
I only saw the 2 maps that me and Saveun played, and my map was like tiny. It was, and Saveun's map seemed pretty small as well. But I did find myself like wanting to, mouse over to the mini map and like scroll around using that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think that's just like because I've played quite a few strategy games, and Saveun hasn't played strategy games for ages, so you're not as used to a mouse and keyboard setup as I might be.
That's bullshit, Blake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he played StarCraft.
Yeah.
So here's my question, Saveun. You played StarCraft, where map awareness is sort of a fundamental thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what your guys are doing, but you also need to know what your enemies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And scouting and stuff like that is really important, right? So when you're playing a game like Halo Wars, where you really only have a small window that you can look at, like you can only look at a small cluster of units, and to see areas where you don't have units, for example, is probably very difficult. How does that feel on a console?
I thought it worked.
Was that ever like a part of the gameplay though? Was scouting, for example, ever part of the gameplay?
Yeah.
Or is the game designed around that?
There's a fog of war and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I thought it was good. You just get your build orders going on, and then scout your troops out. I was doing that Dota thing that I've seen people do, where you just smash down the move to button, and you're just like repeatedly freaking spamming it.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a thing or if I was like, or you're meant to do that, but I was definitely doing that. Another strategy game that we played recently. Were you there when we were playing Supreme Commander? Or Total
Did you play that?
Oh man.
Remember how I ruined everyone at the office that one time?
I remember getting wrecked a lot with that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was really into Total Annihilation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've heard very good things about those games. I've never played any of the.
Oh, they're fantastic.
They're cool. They're man, they like they send wave after wave of your troops. Like
that's also a much more complex game than StarCraft, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the
unlimited unit
other
count.
end of the spectrum from from probably Halo Wars.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'd say so.
Interesting. And do you like that one?
Shit, yeah. I really got into it.
What did you like about that game?
The units. I'm one of those guys that likes to build up this massive army and just send that out and just watch the destruction.
So, you'd probably be sort of like a Timmy player.
I don't know what that is.
There are these like psychographic profiles of different types of game players. I think these were established initially by Wizards of the Coast for Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
A Timmy is someone who likes big, flashy things. Like
this is me.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So, a Timmy Magic the Gathering player likes huge creatures, like giant dragons, and winning in the coolest way possible, basically. And it doesn't really matter if they lose more often than they win, as long as when they win, it's spectacular.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
A Johnny is someone who likes to use things in quirky ways and find weird.
This sounds like
weird
Unique.
Combinations of rules.
Does sound like Unique, actually.
I'm probably a bit of a Timmy and a bit of a Johnny. And a Spike is someone who is strictly looking at like the competitive edge. So this is more like they may. So okay, a Spike would probably use a Harvester in StarCraft to scout quite early.
Okay.
That's not the intended purpose, but by using that extra scout early, they may get the competitive edge, or they may build. They may be looking for the most efficient build strategy, but keeping in mind like how to counter, like building in such a way that they have an out in case their opponent is using a counter strategy. So they're looking strictly for efficiencies, and they're looking for the most efficient path to victory, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you're a Timmy.
Yeah, I just remember one game we played. It was me, you, Harry. I think you were there. It was 4 of us.
Yeah, yeah.
We were playing in the office.
Yeah.
Back in the old office.
I remember
Me, Harry, Robbie, one other person.
Yeah.
And it ended up, I think I started in the bottom corner.
Right.
Took Harry out. I took you out, I think. And then the 4th person was building up this massive Goliath thing. But I had 3 bases at that point, and I was just steamrolling.
Oh, man.
Those were good games. I remember them, and they were cool. I remember one game where Harry, it must have been early on because Harry got beaten, and then he ended up finding out that you could upgrade your units.
Yep.
He had level 1 units the entire time.
The problem is I always get stressed out playing those games.
Yeah,
because I really get into it.
Dude, that's why I can't play StarCraft or something like after work because then I'll just be up for like 3 hours afterwards.
Oh my gosh!
Out.
Yep.
I used to have dreams about playing StarCraft.
Oh yeah, dude, so did I.
Like but it would all be like very similar to the real game rules. Like it was based so hard in reality that I would wake up thinking I had just learned something about the game.
Oh wow!
You know,
dude, that's your brain like processing.
Yeah.
stuff.
It's you play to the point where like you have a fundamental understanding of the basics, and your brain just plays out scenarios. You know,
that's wow. You're running simulations.
Yeah, basically,
that's amazing. Yeah.
But that's what your brain does for almost anything. You know, I'm sure if you're learning an instrument, your brain, if you have a dream about playing an instrument, you're probably working through real stuff.
I have weird dreams that I'm back working at a movie theater, and all the problems happening there are very specific
and very mundane.
And I'm like, I remember these problems exactly how to solve them, and then I wake up going, why do I still remember this like stuff? It has no bearing on my life currently. Like, why am I dreaming of this so specifically?
I had dreams about working in a call center for years.
Oh god, that would be.
Did you work at a call center?
Yeah.
It'd be weird if you didn't.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those at an old place I worked at.
Oh man,
this one I used to work at Macca's, and I remember this freaking dream where people were ordering burgers, but I kept pulling out like hot dog buns. Like, I can't make anything. Like mince, like pack and save, like supermarket mince. I was like throwing on the grill. And stuff.
Shit!
It was just
wow.
like I
so like dude, like there's stuff going wrong, right? And you're like scrambling to like fix it, but everything you do, like you don't have the right stuff. Like that's exactly the same thing as what I've been getting. Yeah.
Talking about dreams, this is completely unrelated to video games at this point, but one of my favorite shows is called Louie. Have you ever watched Louie?
Louie the CK?
Yeah. In season 5 of Louie, and I just watched this episode like 3 times, like recently, because I was in the US and US Netflix is so much better than New Zealand Netflix.
Dude, I used to get a proxy for US Netflix, and it was so much better, and then they blocked it, and I was real bummed out.
So Louie's on US Netflix, so I was watching it in like the hotel rooms and stuff, and then it was also the same episode was on the plane on the way back. So like, you know what? I'm gonna watch it again.
Wow.
There's an episode about dreams.
No.
And it's the most accurate representation of dreams I've ever seen on a TV show. It's just so good. Check it. It's called Untitled.
Okay.
To make it really easy for you guys. See if you can track it down. Watch Untitled. It's so good.
Cool. But yeah, Hello Wars 2. You liked it.
Yeah, I did. Did you play anything? Or get up to anything?
Yeah, I played a bit more Dishonored 2 and playing more Stellaris, which is just Stellaris is kind of a it's sort of annoying because like it's a game that never ends, and so I'm just always playing it and not really playing anything else. It's not really that interesting to talk about. Yeah,
but Dishonored 2,
Dishonored 2 though. I mean, yeah, I rambled on last week about like the world building and stuff, but man, their world building is just fantastic. I've turned off. You have like objective markers that you see just in the environment, and that's just part of the HUD. So I turned those off because I found myself not really paying attention to things people said or stuff I read. I would just see a pop-up that said, go to this marker, and so I'd go there and not really experience the environment. I'm just like, it's just a thing to go through to get to this point. So I turned those off because I was like, I don't feel like I'm playing the game properly. I did the same thing with The Witcher as well, actually.
Yeah.
So now to find stuff, I've got like I'll get you start off saying you need to get and kill this person. And so I have to figure out where they are in the environment because I'm not being told where they are through the objective marker. And they're like they highlight things so perfectly in that game. Like you'll overhear a conversation where someone is saying such and such is in the basement or whatever of the building that you're in, and you're like, that's the person I'm looking for. They're in the basement. And you'll find like an elevator that clearly has it labeled, lobby, blah, blah, whatever, basement. And you're like, I know that they're down there. It's perfect. And you completely miss all this kind of stuff if you're just following the objective markers, Like there was a mission where I had to retrieve a body from a building and drop it off to someone in the basement of an old dentist building. And I'm like, how am I going to know any of this? But I just happened to find the body because of luck, really. Like I just searched every building like that. I knew the general area it was, so I was like, I'm just going to go through every building and try to find it. I found it, and then I'm like, how am I going to find this bloody dentist office, which was an old dentist office that's not being used anymore? Like this is going to be impossible. And I went around the corner and down the street on the street corner, I saw a big tooth sign that said dentists, and I was like, that's where I'm going. That's the thing. And I totally would have not even looked at that, not even appreciated it if I'd just been following the stupid objective marker. So yeah, it's I'm just immersed in it. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm getting good at one-shot murders and because that dude, I've sort of realized that game is really all about killing things in one shot. Like if you're in a situation where you're like, I think I can take that person out, but then I'm gonna have to fight these other two people. Like you can't really do it. You need to take them out, at least two of them out in one shot. And so I've gotten good at warping down there, stabbing one in the back, warping somewhere else, stabbing somebody else, or I did this really cool move, very similar to what I talked about on the last podcast, where I froze time and just murdered tons of people in the area and was teleporting all over the place while I was doing it. It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying that. And
is that an open world game?
No, but the areas are quite large, and the areas are built in a way that it's you have it's a bit like what's it called, Deus Ex, where you have multiple ways of getting in there. But the world is so beautiful that I want to find every single way to go through because I just want to experience the whole thing in its entirety, which is completely not realistic. You don't go, okay, I need to assassinate someone in that building. I'm just going to find every single way I can go through there. And then when I've killed them, I'm going to explore the entire building to find every way I could have gone in there. It's just I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
When I played Deus Ex, I think it was the Human Revolution. Was it the first of the modern ones?
I think so. Sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah, whichever one came out in 2011 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
There was an achievement for non-lethal playthrough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found I was trying to sort of do that on my first playthrough. And then I got to a part where I accidentally killed someone or whatever, and I stopped playing basically.
You couldn't live with yourself.
Well, it was I'm not gonna go through it again or whatever, and I wasn't enjoying it enough to just play through it as it is or whatever. Although in retrospect, I probably could have just played however I wanted and just enjoyed the game at its face value. But I remember that I think Dishonored 1 had something similar. There was achievements for non-lethal playthroughs or whatever.
Yeah. This has. I mean, it probably has it because every mission you get a sort of summary of how you did and where you sort of ranked on the lethal to non-lethal kind of thing. And there is a box that says didn't kill anyone.
Yeah.
Or wasn't seen by anyone, and yeah. So you can definitely go through the game not killing anyone.
Yeah. For some reason, that harms my gameplay experience.
Really?
Yeah. When there is a when there is a prize, an achievement or whatever,
But it's just an achievement. It doesn't affect anything except your pride.
On one level, I agree with you, but on another level, there are points associated with it or whatever, right? Like there is a bar somewhere that gets filled up as you do.
Yeah, but
things.
it means nothing.
Oh, it totally means nothing, except that it kind of means something.
To you, it means something.
And then
I got more points than somebody else. That's
of course.
Yeah.
And I find that hurts for some reason. I'm the kind of player where if I hear there's like an achievement for playing through it in a certain way, I'll try and do it on the first time.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of efficiency or whatever. And then if I mess it up, my desire to play that game plummets.
Wow. So I mentioned this on the last podcast that I always start every mission trying to get that achievement for that mission of like not killing anyone or not being seen, and it very, very quickly turns to shit.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, well, I got to roll with it now. Like
that would be a nice mentality for me to have.
Yeah.
I just don't have it. I really should. I should work on that because there are so many games that I've just stopped playing.
Yeah, I completely stopped playing it. Yeah. Is such a bummer then.
Yeah.
So your whole enjoyment of it just hinges on this one thing that's
not my
completely
whole enjoyment,
optional.
And in fact, I would probably have a much better time if I just forgot about that entirely or switched it off or hit it, or if there was some way to just completely disengage from the achievement.
If it was something like the achievement was still there, but it didn't tell you up front it was there, when you finish the game, it just pops up and you're like, oh yeah, thanks, I didn't kill anyone. That's great.
That's a tricky question to answer because like with hidden achievements, I have certain assumptions, and I'll assume that one of them is going to be like method of completing the game. So for example, Bioshock Infinite, for example, I'd be like, there's probably an achievement for like doing all of the options related to one thing versus all the options related to another, like all the dialogue options. Like at the start of Bioshock Infinite, when you can either throw the thing at the guy or not.
Right.
You know, I'll assume that there are branching. This branching option has gameplay implications later, and those gameplay implications later probably have achievement implications or whatever, right? And so I tend to play with that sort of meta knowledge at the back of my mind at all times, which is a problem. In the case of Bioshock Infinite, it was fine because I played the crap out of that game, and like I did basically every variation of it you could do, because it wasn't too long, and it wasn't, and it was so well crafted that like the whole entire time I was really enjoying it. But for a game like Deus Ex, which was a little rougher on the edges, and which had quite stark character customization options, where if you took one branch, you couldn't take the other at all, and if you tried to go middle of the road, you kind of screwed up in both directions or whatever. That's where I started running into problems.
Right. The thing I didn't like about Deus Ex was that because I would approach that game the same way I'm approaching Dishonored, where I would try not to kill anyone. And then when things turn to shit, I'll just murder a bunch of people. But so much of that game was just crawling around vents. It was like if you want to go the stealth road, there's a vent somewhere.
That's the other part of it. It makes the experience very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
That's very,
And they advertise it as like, you got multiple options to get into this building. You can do this, you can do that. But it really is either be like Neo from The Matrix and just blast everyone in that lobby, or creep around an event. Yeah.
I think you may have even made a better point than I have.
Right.
I think you may have just helped me figure out one of the reasons I don't like this.
There you
go. It's just it incentivizes you to have a narrow gameplay experience. And I think that's really what the problem is for me.
Right. You might really not like Dishonored then, because not only is there the achievement for not killing anyone, there's an achievement for not being seen by anyone at all, which is bloody impossible to do. I don't know who's doing that, but yeah, I think you'd drive yourself nuts trying to do that.
Yeah, I think also part of the problem is that a lot of these achievements can only be done a very specific way. You know, you have to take out these guys in this set order when they're at this point in their patrol.
Yeah.
And you have to get these upgrades, and you have to blah 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 whatever. There's not there's an element of creativity in that you sort of have to put the puzzle pieces together. and you have to sort of you analyze the situation, and you figure out the order, and you execute it.
But you also have to know the full puzzle to begin with.
Yes,
I mean,
that's true as well.
You go through sections. So what you do in one, you don't know. Like if you put, you choke somebody out and you hide a body somewhere.
How is that going to come back to bite you in the ass later?
Yeah, you don't know that. And then something you did at the start of the game could then affect right at the end when, you thought you're going to get through without being seen or be killed by anyone, and whoops, last guy accidentally dies because of something you did.
On top of that, at least in the case of Deus Ex, a lot of these choices were false choices.
Right.
As in if you make this choice without knowing it, you're gonna be found out, and you're gonna have to run away and either try and reapproach it and do the stealth kill or whatever later, or you do the other option and you do the stealth thing then and there. There's not in the way that Path of Exile gives you all the tools and lets you create a build, however you see fit. You don't have that. It's it's designed with a certain style in mind, and you execute it or you don't. And it's like a false creativity, if that makes sense. It was like the level is designed for you to take these paths, and you either you take those paths and you get the results you want, or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about Deus Ex, though, a mate of mine really, really loved that game, and I pretty much said the same thing to him that I just said about crawling around in vents, and he was like, "Oh, no wonder you didn't like it. You're playing it wrong. You just play it like a first-person shooter, and it's great." And I was like, "Oh, maybe that is how I should be playing.
That's totally the problem.
Just be a first-person shooter."
Yep. Yeah, that's really because they incentivize you to do a different thing.
Yeah.
But that is it often anti-fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weirdly anti-fun, the stealth way.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably great fun once you have a deep understanding of the game, and you can then play around, and you know all the ins and outs or whatever. And you're not missing out on anything because you're doing the stealth option. But when you know that there is an incentive from the get-go, and because your friend told you about it, or because it's in the achievements menu, and you go about doing it and you have a bad time, that achievement shouldn't have even been available in the first playthrough. There probably needs to be some level of on your first playthrough, just go have a good time and do whatever, and then we'll talk about specializations and whatnot later.
Well, that's the whole thing of making a choice before you know what how it's going to affect your gameplay. The one real bummer with Dishonored is right at the start, it lets you choose which character you want to play as.
Yeah.
And I know that because of things I've heard and stuff that the characters have different powers.
Yeah.
But I don't know what those powers are at that point. Yeah. So I could just completely ruin my game by picking the wrong character.
It's interesting that you're talking about this because Dark Souls does the same thing.
It does. But it thrives on that. That is.
But you choose a character. I remember in Demon Souls, you choose the armored character. You've made the wrong choice. You're gonna lose.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Have a very bad time. You choose the naked character. Hey, good choice. Have fun.
Dark Souls is a special case. And that's exactly what happened to me in Dark Souls. I chose the armored knight guy because I'm like, of course I'm going to choose the armored guy. Why wouldn't I? But he's slow and useless and can't roll and just lies on the ground for ages.
Yep.
And, it's not good.
Yeah. Real strange.
Yeah. I think that's all I had to say. I thought there was something else I wanted to say about Dishonored, but I can't remember now.
I wanted to talk about some RTS stuff.
Okay.
It made me remember one of my favorite games. I want to see if I can track it down, and we should probably try doing LANs and stuff of it in the office, because it's called Empire's Dawn of the Modern World.
Holy crap.
Is it related to the Empires theory? Age of Empires?
I don't think it's directly related.
Okay.
It plays on some of the same mechanisms.
Damn it. You have to pick berries and kill animals?
You pick berries, you kill animals, you harvest resources, and you go from classical through to World War II, basically.
Right.
But I love that game because you choose your nation at the start of the game, and as you're teching up, you get branching choices later that bring you into modern cultures. And they had, and the tech trees are really interesting, and you have like wonders, and you have all sorts of stuff but their method of like normal like strategy games have like rock paper scissors sort of. This unit counters that unit, which counters this unit, right? In Empire's Dawn on the Modern World, it was just the sort of attributes of the unit that determined how well they countered something else. So like you'd have these tank guns, which were great against tanks just because they had like armor penetration or something like that, and tanks had high armor, but did terribly against whatever else other thing.
Well, like a person.
Yeah, like a person.
You shoot a armor-piercing bullet at a person and it doesn't do as much damage.
Well, it might actually take down quite a few people, but
Right.
people are so cheap by comparison that it actually ends up not being as efficient, right?
Right.
And they also did these amazing things with line of sight where height mattered.
Oh, cool.
Like you'd build a tower on top of a hill, and it would have much more line of sight and range. But then
that's cool.
on top of that, as something's climbing the hill, it can't shoot it quite as well because the angle of the projectile. It was a great game. So I want to see if we can track this down.
Yeah. How old is it?
I want to say it was like 2005 or 6.
Oof.
So it's pretty old.
I can imagine what it's going to look like then.
And it was ugly even back then. Like it was not a good looking game, but dang, it was fun.
Yeah.
One of my fondest memories was like a 4.5 hour game I played with my best friend.
Oh wow.
We were teamed up. I was like playing France and he was playing Korea.
Yep.
And I don't remember who we were up against, but 2 of the people on our team had quit.
This is taking too long.
It was a 4-on-4 fight. 2 of the people on our team had quit, and the other people on the other team were still around. And we were basically on 2 separate islands, giant continents with this ocean in the middle.
Wow.
And it was just basically like a no man zone, in the center. And we were just like a stalemate, slowly building up resources, slowly pecking away at each other. There are finite resources in the game, so at some point you just have to start.
Yep. Taking it from
it
others.
becomes a war of attrition,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And we figured out this great mode of attack after hours and hours, and we found the weakness, and we burrowed through into their base and blew them up. But it was such a tense game for 4 hours. There are very few games that like leave a lasting impression.
Yep.
Especially multiplayer games where you remember a specific match. So the fact that I remember this years later is a good sign. I'm gonna play that game more.
Well,
This is happening.
What was it called again?
Empire's Dawn of the Modern World.
Man, it sounds like a mobile game. That's
Yeah.
like the title of every mobile game nowadays.
It was like a sort of like B-tier studio, I think,
Right.
who made it at the time. They didn't have a lot of art resources, but clearly a ton of design work went to it.
Do you know if they've made anything else?
They had made other stuff. I
Yeah.
don't remember what.
Okay.
I need to look them up.
We should track it down.
Yeah. If we can track it down, I totally want to do a LAN in the office.
Do you think it sounds good, Saveun?
I'm on the fence about that game.
Why?
Just because we're in 2016.
Yeah, that's what would.
Okay, but
That's what would put me off. I
have you
think.
played Age of Empires 2 recently?
No.
I mean, it's aged, but at its fundamentals are still pretty solid.
They HD'd it though.
Huh?
They HD'd it.
Yeah. I mean, this is not going to look good, but in terms of like modern
Yep.
RTS expectations, where you
Okay.
can like assign things to locations and expect the villagers to act intelligently, like when the berry bush runs out, they go to the next berry bush or whatever.
Yep.
or when the farm runs out, they replant it or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's got all of that.
Yeah.
And so it's got modern usability features, and I think even back then they were kind of new usability features and sort of revolutionary at the time, despite it being like a low budget title.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
It just I found that game so good.
It sounds like the map is big too. If you've got a whole ocean and continents.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of options.
I love a big map.
You can make the map huge.
Sweet.
Back in the day, it ran very poorly on my computer
Yeah.
if I made the map too big.
Oh man,
So-
it's gonna run great. It's gonna run great.
Fingers crossed.
I wonder how
it runs
will
at
it look
all.
at the new resolutions though?
Is
it gonna
it's
be
gonna
like-
garbage?
Be like the Diablo 2 effect where you put it on, you're like, oh god,
what am I looking at? Maybe. I mean, it's all 3D.
Oh, really?
It's not like it's not sprites and isometric. It's all 3D. It's just the 3D models were kind of low poly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll check that out.
My takeaway is we're overdue for some solid strategy games.
You know what? I agree with you. I can't think of what's come out recently that
StarCraft.
The last StarCraft did.
Yeah.
Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, that
I didn't play any of the last 2 StarCrafts.
Yeah,
And I'm sure they're good, but when I got the first StarCraft, it was fun, but it didn't satisfy my my RTS itch. I don't know.
I'm with you, man. Yep.
It was streamlined in some senses to the point of like being kind of boring, you know.
I'll tell you one thing with that Halo Wars 2. I haven't seen high level gameplay of that before.
Right.
A lot of me playing StarCraft multiplayer is knowing that there are a lot of people much better than me.
I was thinking about that as well. The skill cap
is
much narrower.
And so this is the reason why I'm not playing multiplayer. I just don't want to get my dreams shattered. But with Halo Wars 2, I'm playing it, and the people playing it there were complete garbage. So,
but for a game like StarCraft, there's matchmaking, right? That you establish your rank.
I know.
And then you're playing against people theoretically of a similar skill level, so you're getting good matches.
I know.
Is it more that when you see your rank and it's like silver or whatever, you're like, oh,
yeah, that would kind of get me a little bit.
That's depressing. I thought I was going to be diamond at least.
Oh man,
that was my I see where you're coming from.
Got to work on my APMs. You know.
Yep. It's not about where you click; it's how fast you click.
Yeah. Got to get those headphones as well. That glow with your APMs change color. Have you seen those?
No, I've never heard of this.
Oh man, that's what they were using in the StarCraft tournaments for quite a while. They had these headphones on, and the higher the APMs, they're like different colors. The headphones will glow.
Okay.
All right, should we start talking about some? Should we start answering some questions?
Yep.
We got some questions here.
We got some listener feedback as well, or listener mail
lot
that you
of
might want
questions. Okay. Well, first of all, if you have a question, you can email us frontseatquestions@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at frontseatcast. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/frontseatcast, and a WordPress site, frontseatgamer.wordpress.com, and a YouTube channel. So just check out one of these things. Blake has been adding clips called bites. I've seen those.
Yeah. Guess how many subscribers we're at?
We were at 8 before or something.
Yeah. We're at 60 now.
No. Oh my god. Get out of here.
Look out, PewDiePie.
Okay.
We're coming for you.
Yeah, it's awesome. 60.
That's great. We're also now on the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network. Have we talked about this before?
I mentioned it briefly.
Cool.
Yep.
We got contacted by these people. They seem like chill dudes.
Yep. They got some good shows as well. Something I noticed after listening to a few of the podcasts on that network.
Yep.
A lot of us have the same intro music.
No.
What?
You know what? Like not the same.
The bit tune
but
thing?
the chip tune music.
Of course we do.
It's all that.
Sure.
See, we've got to go back to the one I picked.
The royalty free.
The royalty free. What is it?
Guitar.
Grunge
What
rock?
do you want to change it to? We could do how about like opera? You want to have like an opera intro?
Oh, class it up a little.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of like Beethoven is open domain, isn't it?
How about some bagpipes? Just
that'll do it.
What's the relationship?
We got.
I don't. Oh man. Well, let's talk some music. We'll talk about intro music. Let's see. Let's mix it up a little bit. See what happens. But our intro music's done by Andrew, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Which is cool.
We'll see. We'll see if he's got any bagpipe music.
Yeah, he's got an album coming out soon that we'll probably mention when it's actually coming out. But
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network. That's hashtag AGPN on Twitter, or you can visit their group facebook.com/groups/AGP Network.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk listener mail. This is from D. I don't know who D is. We're keeping that on the down low. But their comment is about pizza.
Oh, yeah. Blake revived this.
We've talked about... Oh, was this in the last episode?
Yeah, Blake brought it up.
It's good. It's always a good talk. When is it not?
Yeah.
Give me the skinny real quick.
Of what?
Of what you talked about.
What was it?
Was it hot or cold?
Well, I'm clearly in the cold camp.
Yeah,
Ed, who was had switched to cold.
Nope.
And
Wrong.
Ryan, what was he? Was he reheat? I think he was reheat.
I don't even know, man.
He was reheat, and he said he almost burnt down his kitchen once reheating pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is, D says, put 2 slices stacked on top of each other, topping sides down, and reheated sandwich press. Works best with thin crust.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
That sounds like a great idea.
That's legit.
I tend to microwave it that way, but
Dude, don't microwave anything, man. What are you doing?
Or oven bake it like that. Oven
Right,
baking
okay.
is a solid strategy as well.
But we have a sandwich press now at work, so I'm looking forward to next time we have pizza.
Getting a Sal's sandwich.
I'm specifically not going to eat any warm pizza, so we have more cold pizza to put in the sandwich press. It's going to be fantastic. I'm just going to take some pizza and just put it straight in the fridge.
Oh my god, I just hate you so much. All right, this is in relation to what game world would you want to live in? Was this something that I missed?
Oh, yeah, that was a question that we sort of made up that I stole from another podcast.
Cool. Excellent. Perfect.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
We're not like creative seat gamers, okay? Come on.
Well, I thought it was a good question.
This is from I Derp a Lot. That's a good name. He or she says, I remember playing Sam & Max Hit the Road when it just came out in the early 90s. I must have been 7 or 8. The game always gave me the strangest open world boner. So let's go with a he for him. I felt like I could go anywhere in that world. And when I played through the remake edition recently, I remember just how good of a game it was and how much of the jokes I didn't understand as a kid. But I also realized that the game had basically nothing to do with the concept of open world. I'd sure want to live in that game world, though. So
that's a point-and-click adventure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it gave him an open world boner.
Well, it was not an open world game.
It wasn't an open world game.
But I guess at the time, it's like the like that was a very unique sort of world. Like those point and click games really did seem more open than other games of the time. You know,
I mean,
like,
even by today's standards, they're pretty open. We were playing the Day of the Tentacle remake recently at home, and just the fact that you can see the crazy dialogue options for things like. You mean like you could do a thing that has no bearing whatsoever on progression, but is there solely to amuse you. Like in Day of the Tentacle, there's an inflatable clown with a laughing box stuck inside of it, and what you're meant to do, spoilers for a game from 1991, is you're meant to stab the clown with a scalpel, and it deflates, and you take the laugh box out of it. But you can punch the clown. And it swings back and then smacks you in the face and laughs at you, and like, there's no reason to do that other than to amuse it.
Yeah,
and you can talk to the clown and do all sorts of stuff. It's just there's just features there for entertainment value, which is just good. You know, a game is meant to be entertaining, or at least some games are. So it's not all about just getting to the end of it, and that I think good games understand that.
I'm with you.
Yeah. This is why I think that items in our game that aren't good but are entertaining still have value. Like there's Extractor Mentis, which is a bit of a troll item, but you know, it's not good. I wouldn't use it to.
What does it do?
Whenever you kill an enemy, you have like a 5% chance to gain Unholy Might and Onslaught. But whenever you kill an enemy, other enemies also have a chance to gain Unholy Might and Onslaught.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like it's a quirky sort of thing, and you know, if you're a spike player, it holds no value.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're just there for entertainment value and to mess around, which admittedly we don't have, we quite a competitive player base, but there are some people who just enjoy them sort of messing around and trying new stuff out. You know, that exists for them as well. We've got a question from one of our Facebook fans, Vivan, I think is how it's pronounced. He says, Breach has been a great success so far, and it's a great throwback to Beyond. What kind of art/design process did you guys work on for it? Why are there so many hands everywhere? Well,
why are there so many hands everywhere?
I think that was just Eric.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Eric just, I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know.
I think he just thought hands are cool.
Hands were cool.
Yeah.
Hands are cool.
Hands are pretty cool.
It's what separates us from the
I mean, to be
from the
fair,
non-hands.
Filthy animals.
from the worms. If it were feet, I don't think that would be as good a league. You know?
The
It'd
feet
be
league?
creepier.
Yeah.
I reckon. Yeah, feet are creepy. Way creepier than hands.
But, I mean,
You
they're
saw
grosser.
If you saw a foot just sitting there, it would be freaky as fuck.
Sure,
I
but
think-
if I went over to that foot and it opened up a portal,
Yeah, like what the hell?
or if I had to click on a foot for loot,
Oh,
or if
man.
there was if all of my cape had a bunch of feet sticking out of it,
Wait, I think hands are creepier.
Yeah.
hands are
Yeah.
definitely creepy.
Is it from Adam's Family?
No, hands just grasp at you. Like,
Yeah,
they can choke
hands-
you. They can grab you.
Yes.
Foot just
I
smells.
get maybe
you know?
the thing is I see my hands every day, but
You're not
I
weirded
wear
out.
shoes all the
This
time,
is
so I
what
don't
it is.
see my feet
Yeah.
very often.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Feet are gross. And
Yeah.
there is a creepy element to feet.
Yeah.
So like, I wouldn't want someone pressing their feet up to my face.
No,
Right.
not at all. Never.
But if a stranger was grasping at me, I would be genuinely afraid. Like if a stranger's like shoving his foot on me, I'd be like, stop that.
You
know?
wouldn't be afraid.
Quit it.
You'd be like,
I
how
would
did he
be-
get his foot all the way up near your face? Like this is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, sure. I it's not terrifying in the same way. I think. He also says in a previous podcast, I mentioned that I did all the writing for Navali. This is me paraphrasing here. How big of a part is the writing for design? It's not a huge part. It tends to be that like design takes priority over the writing. However, ideally things work in tandem. You know, ideally all parts work together for the same goal. But sometimes there's a cool mechanic and there needs to be something written to fit it. Flavor text, for example, is often one of the last steps for unique item creation. And so it sort of has to it has to work to bridge all the elements together. In the case of prophecy, oftentimes, I think for almost every case, we had the mechanics of, or what we wanted the prophecy to do, and then I went and wrote a prophecy for it. So in that case, it was sort of the secondary feature there. But it helped because it gave good feedback when you got a prophecy, and when you completed a prophecy, you heard the dialogue. And ideally, what was meant to happen was you'd then look back at what your actions did, and you'd see the words and hear the words, and you'd go, oh, now I get it. But I think in a lot of cases, there were some that were just bad.
Right.
The Vol Orb prophecy is one that people hate.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
Well, what is
hate
it? Tell it.
It was, and keep in mind, I had to write hundreds of these. So,
So this was the last one.
so
yeah, just
quality
tapped out.
quality control was a little all over the place.
Oh, a thing happens. Next
was like-
prophecy.
And so the prophecy is like, okay, the next Vol area you go into, the boss will drop a Vol Orb. And so I think that the prophecy text I ended up writing was like, to harvest grain, you need a tool. To build something, you need a tool. To spread corruption, you need a tool.
Right.
And that was it. Like
Okay.
the implication being that a Vol Orb is
Yeah.
the tool used for spreading corruption. To be fair,
Had you just been to Bunnings or something? Like, just come back from a hardware
I don't
store.
know,
and
man. It was one of the like 200 and something prophecies. They can't all be the best, you know. There's going to be variance there, and in this case, the variance was wide. What else does he say here? Do we consult Eric on this? Yeah, I talked to Eric quite a lot. I think he also just tends to check stuff. What's your experience with? I mean, you guys work quite closely with Eric to some extent, right?
Yeah. Eric's like a filter for all the stuff. I always check with him now with art assets. Earlier on, I would try and use my own intuition, but just found out that Eric and I have very different taste in what we think should go in the game.
Eric, I think I've spoken about this before. The main feedback Eric usually gives me is that it's too fantasy. Like I'll make something like the catapult is like the prime example where I used some Warhammer reference, And then his feedback to me was like, it's too much like a Warhammer thing. It's too fantasy. Like, tone it down.
Yep.
And so he's all about more realism and less like fantasy looking stuff.
Eric's quite good at trying to keep the world consistent, which is helpful because as soon as things start standing out of the world, a whole entire like immersion element starts to break down. I think he tends to just check almost everything that goes in the game at some point before it goes live. So I'll just like, at least in the past, I'd be working on unique items and I'd write name and flavor, and then I'd like make an issue to get 2D art made, and it might include the name and flavor in that issue to help give the artist some idea of what to work towards. And then he would immediately sort of shoot back and say, "This name's dumb. Come up with a better one." and oftentimes he was right. Like the name was dumb.
How hard is it to come up with names for things?
It varies. Sometimes it's super, super easy. And sometimes it's very, very hard. In the case of like, if we're talking Breach, for example, I wanted those names to sound distinct from the Beyond names, but also distinct from any other culture we had in the game.
So did they need to follow a theme of some type? Like like how Lovecraft monsters all sort of sound the same. They've all got like
right
in their name.
Yeah. So what I was trying to make them all sound like they could have come from the same culture.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to also sound like they came from the same world as Beyond, but basically a different culture from the Beyond world.
Oh wow,
as
that's tricky.
Right. So I don't know. It's hard for me to tell how well I achieved that because, it's a sort of subtle thing. And it's not something that people are looking out for. And so you don't really hear feedback about that sort of thing. But you hear feedback when something's wrong.
Right.
Like when something sounds bad or has a dumb name, you hear about it. And so not hearing about that is sometimes good. But for like the Breach ones, I went with like, I wanted shorter sounds. So that's why there's like Esh and Tool and like names that are kind of short and to the point. And then like the longest one is Ul Natal. Which sort of still has some similar sounds to like some of the other ones. So it's more that for like Breach names, I tried to have based around sort of similar sounding vowels and stuff.
That's cool because that's some world building that's happening there.
Yeah,
that is in the background that people probably don't even think of.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wrote about this in the interview that we posted. But like naming things is something I think about a lot. Because it is one of the connections that people have to the world is that how things are named. And a name can tell you a ton about the world and the culture and things like that. Like a name can tell you immediately where someone's from or what something's function is, or like if they're good or bad, or like it creates something like memorable or a connection to the character,
Right.
So I think about naming a lot because there's just also a ton of things to name as a game designer.
Yeah.
Items, skills, enemies, chests, like anything that can be moused over basically has to have a name.
Areas.
Yeah, areas.
Although I guess Eric comes up with a lot of the area names, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, he does. Eric also tends to ask for like feedback on some stuff because obviously English isn't his first language.
Right.
And so he might have an idea and he'll pass it. He'll be like, I want something like this, but like make it use better English. And he's a good writer, but because English isn't his first language, there's just sometimes stuff that needs to be fixed up. Yeah. So naming, I think about tons. Do you guys ever like have thoughts about like? I mean, you guys work on art all the time. Is there stuff that you think about and like you focus on that other people probably don't think is important, or people don't even necessarily think about? So, for example,
art.
Yeah.
All the technical stuff is very interesting to me. No one playing the game, especially the left brain type people. I don't even think consider it. Yeah.
So, like for example, one of the areas we showed off on the press tour and which players have now seen is called the Ascent, which is the climb up up Mount Veruso, the first snow area that we've had in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Before we went on press tour, any given area in like any given screen in that area had like 1.5 million polygons.
Yep.
And
that's a few.
and the performance was really, really bad.
Oh,
as a
wait,
result.
was that during the press tour?
That was just before the press tour. By the time of the press tour, we had it down to about half of that. But I think there's still tons of optimization to be done in that area. But like, when you guys are making those like tile sets or like models, obviously a lot of the stuff starts off as high poly. So you often think about when you're, for example, when you're creating a high poly model. I've seen you, Saveun, working on like a fountain, for example. Are you keeping in the back of your mind how you're going to make it low poly, or what's?
Of course. I should give this the Ascent a little context. Garth worked on it. Garth is one of the new environment guys.
Yeah.
He was hired to do some photogrammetry stuff at GGG.
Yes.
So it was one of his first his first complete tile set.
Which is like a big thing,
huge.
like being thrown straight into be like make a whole tile set.
Massive.
When I first joined, I wasn't that. It was like, here, make these little changes
These
to some of
props.
these tile sets, and you gradually get a better idea.
Yeah. So Garth came in like that, and he is not. He doesn't understand our engine and our pipeline.
Sure.
Like Blake or myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's been here a very small fraction of that time.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that worked with Unreal a whole bunch. So
Right.
you just throw whatever you can at it, and Unreal will sort it out.
Yeah.
Poly counts, are minimal, and culling is a little better in other engines. Ours, not so much. And so me and another artist actually helped Gareth do a whole bunch of optimization
Yep.
on that tile set. And at the end of it, I kind of messaged him and was like, all right, if we were to do this tile set again, I would advise you to do this, this, and this. All right. Basically optimizing from the get-go.
Right.
There was a bit of back and forth,
Sure.
and we're going to avoid it. Like that was a problem. And
Specifically the performance of that area, or how the methodology behind it.
yeah, well, the way I didn't know about that tile set. I had to talk to Eric about this as well. I just wasn't aware of the way this is. I would like to talk about photogrammetry used in the industry.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about doing a talk for this year's GDC, the NZ GDC.
Awesome.
I'm thinking about it.
So,
but
for people who haven't heard much about this, photogrammetry is where you take tons and tons and tons of photos of a real world object, and then from lots of different angles, and then a program basically composites all of those photos and figures out the angles and whatnot, and creates a very high resolution 3D model. And then an artist will have to go in and fix up any sort of weird mistakes or stuff.
It's a great technology.
Yeah, it means that you get like lifelike looking objects.
Yep.
For low effort.
You have the best looking rocks.
Yeah.
Ever.
They're huge rocks.
Huge rocks.
They've got the greatest rocks.
So this one company, Quixel, is doing a whole bunch of assets like this, and they're releasing it in a package called Megascans. They're releasing it to the entire industry.
Yeah.
These rocks actually came from it. I'm sure I can talk about this. It's not. We did touch up these assets.
Sure.
But you shouldn't. These assets are not optimized. They're not great. They're made for engines like Unreal. They're meant for people to put them in an environment and show off that for maybe their own reel. They're not. I never would view them as final in game, especially for our game assets. And that's kind of what happened with that tile set.
Right. So it was just some inexperience or whatever. But I mean, ultimately, that's getting sorted. It's not really what the question is. It's more about like. So you think about optimization is on the forefront of what you're thinking about when you're touching up a model or creating something brand new.
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, a whole bunch, and that's a lot of me and what I do at Grinding.
Yeah, I remember I came over and I said something to you, which
I was very offended.
Yes, you were, and it wasn't my intent to offend you. It was just an observation I was making. Because you're okay. Let me preface this by saying Saveun is an amazing artist.
Thanks, Nick.
His 3D art is really, really great.
Have you seen my 3D art?
Yeah, I've seen you working on stuff.
Outside of Grinding Gear?
Turret Town.
No, not outside of my personal first video game.
Well then,
your student reel. I remember
no,
that.
I actually have work, but
no,
carry on.
I haven't seen anything outside of like those two things.
Keep going.
But like the observation I was making was, oftentimes we get these like high resolution scans of things. In this case, it was like a statue you were working on, and I was like, "Hey, Saveun, it's funny that like your job is amazingly making things look worse for our game."
Yeah.
The point being, like, you're going from high resolution, photorealistic, whatever, to something that won't drop performance in our game. Basically, something that is good and like looks good, but isn't. It's not photorealistic anymore. It's
as soon as that sentence left your mouth, did you instantly think, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that"?
I did when I saw Saveun's reaction. It was just like, Nick, you son of a bitch.
But also, I think that's just Nick not understanding the tools and the process.
Yeah, this is true. I don't know the art pipeline very well. But I do understand that like a lot of work goes into making something that even if something from photogrammetry will have significant flaws just because there are bumps or whatever, and the photo doesn't capture the surface underneath or whatever. You know, there's just weird stuff, and Saveun has to go through and fix up tons and tons and tons of flaws before he starts scaling it down to something that will work in our game, and also to fit the style of the game. That was something I also hadn't really thought very much about, was that like our game doesn't look photorealistic, and it can't look photorealistic. And objects that do look photorealistic in our game stick out as bad.
Okay.
Well, it's like, they don't have the same color palette as the actual game does, or the surface texture doesn't fit the aesthetic of the area or whatever.
Sure. Okay.
And so you
make
sure
there would be some like adjusting textures to fit the environment that they're in that they may not have been in when the pictures were taken.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
But we can control that. Like, you know it.
Yeah, that's what Nick's saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
is that like you don't want to just put something from photogrammetry straight in the game, even if you could just scale it down immediately, because it may not suit the area.
I'll talk a whole bunch about this when I do, if I do that.
Dude, you should. I'm forward
excited.
to it.
Right.
Yeah, I like know of it and loosely know the thing, but like it, photogrammetry really well, and I'm excited to hear about
Thanks,
it.
Blake.
Yeah, well,
I'm considering.
It's what you do. Like it's yeah.
Cheers.
It's also becoming like sort of the industry standard.
Well, yeah, it's the reason why Battlefront looks so good.
Resident Evil 7 as well.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think the upcoming Kojima game, Death Stranding, which by the way just looks very strange.
Wait, what? Oh,
Kojima's new thing.
Yeah. Wait, has anything else been shown of that, or was it just that one trailer?
There's been a couple trailers, maybe 2 or 3.
I've only seen 2.
Okay, with the weird. There was a
first one
in it, right?
First one was babies and USB stick necklaces and dead whales on the beach. The second one was like
organs on tanks, airplanes, double rainbow.
Skeleton soldiers, Guillermo del Toro in the sewers.
I haven't seen this.
Mikkel Medicine or whatever his name is. I've forgotten his name. How to pronounce his name. He's the Dutch dude. He was in Doctor Strange. He was like the bad guy in Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah.
He's in it. He's just in it.
Okay.
Guillermo del Toro is in it for no reason other than because I guess Kojima was like, "Hey, do you want to be in it?" And he's like, "Sure."
Man.
He's not. Other than that, it's just being like he's just a face.
It's
just real weird stuff.
Yeah, he's just let off the chain. He's just here's a bunch of money. Do it.
Yeah.
Just do whatever.
Yeah.
Everything you touch is gold.
Sure. Anyway, we're probably out of time. We've got more questions to answer, but I'm sure there'll be other times to answer them.
For sure.
But thank you to Vivian for that that question got us started about talking about that. We'll be back in a couple weeks. You can email us and stuff, ForensicQuestions@gmail.com, and tweet at us at ForensicCast, etc. We love hearing from you guys. You should rate us on iTunes if you like it. If you don't like it, whatever. Rate us on iTunes anyway. And we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's pump up these jams. Okay.
Cover all 9,000 taste bud. Aerate it. Warm it up. Driving up. That top note. That cream. Pure vanilla. Sweeteners. That's a 10.
That's all it was.